Good morning, I'm Harley Schlanger. I'd like to welcome you to our new website, the LaRouche Organization, as this will be the first of the daily updates which will be posted here. Today is December 28th, 2020, and it's without exaggeration that I can say that we're veering into among the most chaotic moments in our nation's history. And it's going to require an extraordinary mobilization of the population to keep President Trump in the White House. There has to be pressure placed on legislatures, which have the ability to decertify electors. Also pressure on the Congress before the January 6th date at which the Electoral College vote will be certified. Now, don't count on secret white hats emerging from the distance as the cavalry to carry out the actions. It really does depend on what the citizens do, and it's up to you to inform yourself, to get a full strategic picture and act on that strategic picture. Now, among the things the president can do to increase the pressure on the legislatures and the Congress, one, as we've been urging, he can appoint a special counsel, which he's talked about doing. This would be crucial to get at the whole question of a full investigation of what happened on November 3rd and in the vote count afterwards. Secondly, publicly release all the documents related to Russiagate, the attacks on President Trump, and the election. Public release, unredacted, put them out there for people to see. Full transparency. And Biden, if he has nothing to hide, should welcome that. Of course, he has a lot to hide. That's why he's still in the basement. And three, pardon Snowden and Assange and exonerate LaRouche. Now, some of you are wondering, why do we put the exoneration of LaRouche in the same category as the pardon to Snowden and Assange? Well, LaRouche was attacked for the same reason as Russiagate was launched, because of his efforts with Ronald Reagan to achieve a strategic deal with the Soviet Union in the 1980s. LaRouche was deployed by Reagan to negotiate what became known as the Strategic Defense Initiative, which was designed by Lyndon LaRouche as a means of anti-war capability using weapons that are beam weapons, new technologies that can knock out the potential for incoming nuclear missiles. Would this have been shared, it would have ended the mutual and assured destruction doctrine of Kissinger and the Strangeloves of the Western side. Now, it wasn't done, because the same networks that attacked Trump on Russiagate were deployed against LaRouche. What you call the deep state today was deployed against LaRouche directly under George Herbert Walker Bush as vice president, and Robert Mueller was involved in the Get LaRouche task force. So the exoneration of LaRouche is crucial to raise this question of what's gone wrong in the United States for the last 50 years with the emergence of a neocon, neoliberal war party that dominates every aspect of policy and is plunging us into an abyss where we face depression and possible nuclear war. Now think back a year ago. I want to give you a sense of this ongoing war party mobilization. What was going on a year ago? In some cases, a little less than a year ago. President Trump defeated the Ukraine impeachment tactic that was used by the Democrats against him in the House of Representatives. He was moving ahead with a Phase 2 trade deal with China after successfully negotiating the Phase 1 deal to work out some of the unfairness of the agreements, the free trade agreements of his predecessors. And Vladimir Putin had called for a summit of the permanent 5 members of the UN Security Council to address the global strategic tensions, and President Trump signaled his willingness to do that. We were moving toward what President Trump promised as a candidate to end the permanent wars, to end the permanent fraud of free trade, which was deindustrializing the United States, to rebuild American infrastructure. And then what happened? The anti-China lobby went into full gear and geared up not only against China, but against Russia. Their real intent was to get rid of Trump. At the same time, they were moving for regime change in Russia and China. Please think about this for a minute. The regime change faction of the Soroses, of the networks associated with the Davos billionaires, of the Democratic Party rejectionists. What was their target? Their target was Trump as president of America rediscovering its sovereignty, but also targeting the sovereign nations of Russia and China. That's what this has been about the last 4 years. The attack on Trump was because he was breaking with the Bush-Obama doctrine of permanent warfare, permanent confrontation, permanent austerity. He was breaking with it, and they decided to try and break him using every means possible, including media censorship, media lies, and the whole Russiagate story. Now, after the election, which is still undetermined whether Trump or Biden will be president on January 21st, we're seeing a gear up of this war party again. On Fox yesterday, Richard Grenell and Michael Pillsbury presented the argument of why we have to prepare for war with China, saying that China is a threat to take over the world. You know, if you look at the size of China's military budget, given that the nation of China is 3 to 4 times as many people as the United States, their military budget is minuscule compared to the nearly $1 trillion that is in the most recent U.S. budget. The argument that China is trying to take over the world with the Belt and Road Initiative is clearly a fraud. And we'll be talking about this in the weeks ahead because the Belt and Road Initiative represents an opportunity for the United States to once again reassert its Republican traditions as a sovereign nation state concerned with developing our own economy as well as the economy for other nations. Then on CNN, you had Garry Kasparov, the former chess champion, with an insane, raging attack on Putin and Russia. No engagement with Putin or Xi. We should eject Russia from international institutions. And he said Biden must be clear. There can be no toleration of Russia's actions. Now, this is what the Biden war party is engaged in putting together. A neoconservative gang of warmongers who brought us Syria, who brought us Libya, who brought us regime change in Ukraine, and put the world on a course toward war, that President Trump did everything in his power to stop in his time as president. And that's why they wanted to get rid of him. Now, at the same time, we're seeing the gearing up for a global banker's dictatorship. The World Economic Forum, the Davos Billionaires Club, announced an online series of conferences starting January 25th. What's the number one issue? Global reset. The global reset is to place the world economy into the hands of private central banks, like the Federal Reserve, like the Bank of England, like the European Central Bank. And these central banks, acting on behalf of the largest globalist institutions in finance and insurance, are committed to not only running credit and monetary policy, but spending policy, taking that power away from elected officials such as the U.S. Congress. And we're seeing that the Congress has made a mess of things. But do you think the bankers would do anything better, given what they did in 2008 to bail themselves out at the expense of millions of homeowners and the shutdown of thousands of industries and the further outsourcing of the U.S. productive capability? So we have to build a fight against this global bankers' dictatorship. So join us. Help us build the viewership on the LaRouche Organization website. Keep in mind what LaRouche represented, Lyndon LaRouche. For 50 years, he led the fight against what we now call the deep state, against the globalist New World Economic Order. He exposed the deep state going from Kissinger, Brzezinski up to the present as an operation of British monarchy, banking, and intelligence. Remember, Great Britain is the historic enemy of the American Republic. And further, at each step of the way, he presented economic alternatives based on a return to the American system of economic production, physical economy. So share this update with your friends. Bring them on to watch the LaRouche Organization website daily. Besides my update, which will be 5 days a week, we'll have a weekly dialogue with Helga Zepp-LaRouche. We'll have news items, videos, all you need to prepare yourself to be a factor in the fight that's ahead. So thanks for joining me today, and I'll see you again tomorrow.